incredible guest today, bro. Our personal therapist, Dr. Lewis Kola. When I came to you and I said, hey, Doc, I'm ready to do the deep work, I'm not even sure I knew what I was asking for, to be quite frank with you. How do you know when you're ready to do the deep work?
The mind, it is powerful, but it is also very fragile. It's like an archaeological site. The deeper you go, the more treasures you discover.
Wow. I felt that there was something, my word, wrong with me because I kept running to the same patterns.
It's not what is wrong with me, because a more effective and more transformative and fruitful question is, I wonder what has happened to me. I wonder what happened to me that I keep repeating this pattern.
You cannot have a new beginning without something dying. How do we as men deal with the seasons of our life when to get to what we desire, something has to die?
Take it there, bro. Oh, that's good.
See, a lot of the challenges that we have with our emotions is because we don't feel entitled to our own emotions. Each and every one of us is deeply and uniquely shaped by certain childhood experiences in our lives. You cannot outwalk your childhood experiences.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got to deal with it, or it's going to deal with you.
What's up, everybody, and welcome once again to The Certified Man. You already know who I am. My name is KD Bowe, and my partner right here, I'm going to call him Hawaii 5-0, but that's not him. His name.
I'm Derwin Davis, the pastor of Reach Church, and I help people win in life.
My dude. Hey, man, so you actually went on vacation recently, bro.
Yeah, man. I'm back a little tired, but hey.
Your back is tired.
No, I said I'm back and
That's
I'm
not
a little
what you
tired.
said, Bishop. The recording is going. All right.
I did not say my back is tired. I said I'm back from vacation.
I have no judgment.
And I'm a little tired.
Yeah,
see how this peasantry is messing with me.
Man, we have an incredible guest today, bro. This is a guy that we know very well. We love him. He has been very instrumental in us becoming the versions of ourselves that we have become. And I'm so honored, man. I don't even want to waste time playing around with it. Ladies and gentlemen, our personal therapist,
yes,
who knows where all the bodies are buried, Dr. Lewis Kola. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. It's good to be with you guys. You guys are mighty fun. Just looking forward to having a good conversation with you guys today.
Indeed. Dr. Kola, man, we talk about you so much that the audience, I'm sure the audience knows who you are, but just, if you don't mind, I know you're a psychotherapist. Am I saying that right?
You said that right?
So you're a psychotherapist. What exactly is a psychotherapist versus just a regular therapist?
Or a psychiatrist?
Yeah, a psychiatrist. You're a psychologist.
Well, essentially, psychotherapy is somebody who will use talk therapy as a means to facilitate change, growth, and healing in the life of individual couples and families. And the difference between a psychotherapist and a psychiatrist can be a psychotherapist, but generally psychiatrists prescribe medication, whereas what we do really is using the power of language, words, and meaning-making as a way to facilitate change, healing, growth, and transformation in the life of people.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. All right, so we've already begun. Let's jump into it. So some therapists, I've heard them say that, if you have been, let's start this way. You've been my therapist for, 15, maybe well over a decade. Let's say that. And I just recently experienced a breakthrough of sorts that in all the times that I've been with you, I'd never really experienced. So we're going to get to that. But my question is, there's some therapists that say, if in fact your therapist is good, you don't need to be seeing them for no decade. Some people say, my goal is to make sure you don't have to come and see me. What do you say about that?
Well, it depends on your understanding of the human mind. The mind is a very, very powerful mechanism in the life of human beings. It is powerful, but it is also very fragile. And depending on the issues that a person wishes to address or to, explore in psychotherapy, really you can do psychotherapy for very few sessions and feel like you gain something or you've accomplished what you set out to do. Now, there's a difference between what we call acute issues, which is something that probably started very recently, as opposed to chronic issues, something that we've been dealing with for in most of our lives. Well, as you can imagine, I will tell you this, the mind, somebody once observed, is like an archaeological site. This is going back to something that you just mentioned. If you think about archaeological sites, the deeper you go, the more treasures you discover.
Wow. The deeper you go, the more treasures you discover. You know, when you ask that question about being with a therapist for multiple years,
Yeah.
the first thing I thought about is I'm not the same person that I was.
Oh, that's good.
And it's
That's
amazing, as Dr. Kola, you talked about, your mind is like an archaeological site, that the digger you deep, the more discoveries of richness and
The deeper you dig.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good.
The deeper that you dig, the more discoveries, the richness, and actually the history, the story behind what actually happened. Dr. Kola, you said something to me. I'm thankful because you're my therapist, but you also understand the Bible. And we've had numerous conversations about psychotherapy and bibliology. But you said, don't ask about what a person has done, ask about what has happened to them. Could you explain that to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you for that really great questions. I think a lot of the time we tend to be antagonistic towards ourselves.
Wow.
Really. I was just talking to someone a moment ago, right? And the person says to me, man, because they're feeling a particular emotion, I shouldn't be feeling like that. And I said, well, how long have you been saying that to yourself? They said, for a very long time. And I said, what kind of result are you getting? They said the same thing. I said, well, would you like to consider a different way to ask that question? Instead of saying to oneself, I shouldn't feel that like that, to say, I wonder why is it that I feel this way?
I wonder why is it that I feel this way?
Correct. And that goes to your questions, right? Trauma experts really have been teaching us for over a decade now that the good question that you can ask yourself when it comes to traumatic, feeling, thinking, or experiences is to say, it's not what is wrong with me, because the immediate question that we tend, what's wrong with me? Why am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? Actually, a more effective, a more transformative, really, and fruitful question is, I wonder what has happened to me. I wonder what happened to me that I keep repeating this pattern. I wonder what has happened to me that I keep thinking this way. I wonder what happened to me that I keep choosing this type of persons or this type of people or this type of behavior as a coping mechanism. That is a more fruitful question. When you say, I shouldn't be feeling this way, in my imagination, that closes the door.
Wow.
When you raise the question, I wonder why I feel this way. I wonder what is behind this. That opens the door for exploration. Again, the deeper you go, and I use your phrase, the deeper you dig, the more treasures you discover. Now, let's not make a mistake. Not everybody wants to discover treasures within themselves.
Wow.
So, as much as we think people want healing, a lot of us, we just want change. We just want something to be different. We don't want to do the work that requires in order for us to heal and to be adequately transformed in our lives. Healing is hard for the weaklings.
Healing is not for the weaklings. Healing is not for the weaklings.
Especially psychological healing.
So here's my question I wanted to ask you, Dr. Kola. When I came to you maybe about 9 months ago, and I said, hey, Doc, I'm ready to do the deep work. I'm not even sure I knew what I was asking for, to be quite frank with you. I just knew that there was something that I felt that there was something, my word, wrong with me. I felt flawed in some way. because I kept running to the same pattern. So I said to you, hey man, I'm ready to do the deep work. I didn't really know what that meant. So if you can tell everybody what the deep work is, and I think we kind of touched on it already, and you said everybody ain't willing to or ready to do the deep work. How do you know when you're ready to do the deep work?
And again, and the deep work looks different for each person.
Yeah.
And the stage of life when we feel prepared to do the deep work might be different. You know, there's a saying that when the student is ready,
The teacher
will show up, will appear, right? A lot of us really are very content, you know, with living on the surface of life. No, seriously, you know, believe it or not, you know, some people are very afraid of their own inner life. I have worked with people that say, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't know what I'm going to discover there. If I go there, I don't know if I'm going to come back.
Wow.
So really the deeper work, I will say this to you clearly, it is impossible to look at the adult self and not see the child within. In every adult person is a child within that. You know, the understanding is that we live our lives forward, but guess how we understand our lives? By looking backwards.
Yeah.
It is no longer debatable. There's no controversy about it anymore, you know, and thank God for that each and every one of us is deeply and uniquely shaped by certain childhood experiences in our lives. You know, I used to go to a gym and one of the trainer had it on the board. He said, you cannot outwork your diet. And I will rephrase that. You cannot outwork your childhood experiences.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got to deal with it or it's going to deal with you.
Wow. Yeah, man. I got to be honest, bro. It was that deep work that was absolutely essential to me, at least having a semblance of this version of myself now. But I can see why people wouldn't want to do it because, man, you basically have to deprogram. You have to tear down these ideals that you've had about yourself and you don't recognize yourself anymore. And to be in that unrecognizable space is very uncomfortable because you look at yourself and you know you're on the right path, at least you think you do, but nothing feels right. It doesn't feel right. And then everybody around you who had gotten used to that version of you, now they are feeling like, oh, you're switching up or you're changing because you decided to be better or do better. It meant not only are you going to upset your life, but you also upset their lives. Can you speak to that?
You know, Pastor David mentioned about, you know, the intersection of Christian spirituality and psychological wisdom. What you just talk about, we can draw an analogy from Christian traditions, right?
Yeah.
There is life, there is death,
Then there's
and there
rebirth.
is resurrection.
Wow.
And all of us want resurrection. Man, we don't want to deal with Good Friday. Everybody love Easter Sunday.
Everybody love Easter Sunday.
But you don't get to Easter Sunday without Good Friday. How many people show up for Good Friday service? Not many.
That's right.
Everybody shows up for Easter Sunday. So what you're describing really is the disruption, really the disorientation that Good Friday takes us through. And every single life must deal with its or our own Good Friday. It's unavoidable.
I don't want to assume that everybody that's in our audience that watches us understand what Good Friday is. And Good Friday, to make it very plain, is a time of a crucifixion. It's a time of pain. It's a time of dying. It's a time of ending. And what I hear you saying we can talk spirituality and talk Bible, is that you cannot have a new beginning without something dying.
Absolutely.
How do we as men deal with the seasons of our life when to get to what we desire, something has to die?
Take it there, bro. Oh, that's good.
Well, actually, the question that you're raising, permeates every major religion.
Wow.
The way it is articulated, or the way that is the nomenclature, the language that is used to describe it. So let's look at one more example, because I know that we might have people in the audience that are not Christians, but I hope they can draw similar analogy from their own faith traditions.
The king, keys of the king.
And exactly, and I know that your platform, welcomes everybody, but the three of us are people of faith, and we are deeply shaped, by our religious tradition. So think about the notion of baptism once again.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in baptism? You go down,
dry,
right? Right. Think about it. You go down,
mm-hmm.
and then you come back up for new life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
See, I really do. And I think, if I may say this, and I want to be very careful with it, I think it is important, particularly, in the Christian faith, to not give people the impression that all of a sudden, if you become Christian, you give your life to Christ, so somehow you are immune from the going down experience of life. No, Jesus never promised immunity from pain and suffering. What he says is, I will be with you. And what I love about baptism, whether it is the pastor or the deacon or the trustee, whoever it is, holds you. You're not alone as you go down. You're being held.
That's right.
That's right. And a psychotherapy can be a place. I'm not saying psychotherapy is the same thing, but a psychotherapy can be a place and a space, in a sacred location where you are held as you go down.
Ooh, boy. Oh, man.
And brought back up again for new life.
Wow.
Yeah,
for new way of thinking, for new way of feeling, and new way of doing, of showing up in your life. I hope I'm addressing. Yes,
no,
go ahead,
you're good, Doc. You're good. Let me just dig a little bit more into this, because one of the things that Derwin asked, and he kind of delved into a little bit, was, it's how do you navigate that space of disruption, but at the same time have a semblance of peace, not necessarily just for you, but for the people that are around you. Like the people that are around you now, man, they don't know if they like this version of you. How do you stand pat with knowing what is right to do versus seeking that peace and for the comfort of others, which, by the way, most men do, in my experience, anyway. We will put the world on our backs for the benefit of everybody else, specifically our families. How do you stand pat to keep moving forward with what you know is right when it seems like it's tearing down everything around you?
There's a sister that I was exposed to at work lately, and somebody heard me talk about that recently, just as far as yesterday.
Please say it. Please say it.
I personally think that, in fact, I have a book. Can I plug it?
Yes, please.
Turn
it around.
I felt like I was holding Bible down.
What It Takes to Heal. You told me about Prentice as well.
That's right. And let me tell you, she has I think, a very, very powerful definition of boundaries.
Please give it to us.
It contains that boundaries is the distance in which I can love you and me at the same time. Boundaries are the distance in which I can love you and me at the same time. And you know what? She's not making this up, right? Out of nothing. She is bearing witness to what JC said.
Mm-hmm.
He said, thou must do what? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, and your neighbor as yourself. Now, what you were describing, right, Mr. Bowe, is that we tend to focus too much about other people. In fact, that for me, I think that is the challenge. We spend too much, time thinking about what other people think, what other people feel, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we shouldn't do so at the negation, and at the expense of ourselves. Somewhere I read, greater is he that is in me, he that is in the world. And then somewhere too, Brother Paul says that be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of who?
Your mind.
Not his mind, but your mind. And when you are transformed by the renewing of your mind, nothing stays the same. Your relationship, your interactions, your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior. So, and the critical things is a lot of the time I am trained, in a psychoanalytic tradition. I'm also trained, in a family system. I'm marriage and family therapist as well as a licensed professional counselor, right? I've worked in addiction fields before, I own a practice that is connected to a faith community, Turner Chapel AME Church in Marietta, Georgia, and the critical things that I invite people to look at really is that as Christians, we don't spend sufficient time in annexing, in exploring, in discovering our inner life. I don't have any issues, with the devil, the Satan, and whatever you want to call it. But I believe that one day when we all get to heaven, we're going to sit down and we'll be like, he made me, and Satan be like, I didn't do that. What is you? So a lot of the time, really, we need to spend time exploring our inner life, really. So in our field, let me say this, and then I'll pause. There is something called transference.
Yeah.
Right? And relationship are fraught with transferential materials.
Wow.
It's a ubiquitous, it's all over human relationship. Transference is when you transfer feelings, experiences that belong to someone else in your past or some other place in your past into the present situation. Let me give you a quick example. I was talking with someone very few hours ago, right? And they came from a religious family, number one, that does not believe in premarital sex, right? And number two, the mother had this, need for cleanliness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything have to be spotless and clean. You drop a piece of, a drop of water, you clean it right away. And now this person is having challenges, in their, sexual relationship with their fiance. I'm not going to go into detail about that. You can see, number one, that your resistance or your hesitation or your discomfort with sex had to do with trying to obey your parents' rule, and then on top of that, this person has, aversion towards fluid related material. Oh. I don't have to tell you more. You don't have to be a psychotherapist. You can see what is going on here. The point is that whatever it is that is unfinished, that is not walked through, that is not dealt with, is been reenacted in relationship with this, this fiance. And a lot of that happens in our life. And I really want to say this clear and loud, that a lot of the challenges we have in our relationships, in our work life, they are oftentimes, I'm not making a reductionistic statement, they are reenactment. We are repeating, we are transferring, we are recreating that already happened in the past, but we're doing so not intentionally, but unconsciously.
Yeah.
Why does the mind desire to react? Why does the mind put you in a cycle and want you to replay this moment. Because what you're saying is a lot of the experiences that we're having today in a relationship, in corporate, in work, in our families is actually a reenactment from something that's happened in the past. Why is that the case?
Especially if it was a negative reaction.
Yeah.
Well, you all know this. So why is it? And I'm going to answer that question in a moment. So why is it that a sister, just using this an example, or a brother for that matter, who grew up with an alcoholic father or abusive father, and guess what? And they swear, heaven and earth, I will never get close to someone that drinks or someone that is abusive. Guess what? The first boyfriend, alcoholic. First husband, alcoholic. Second husband, alcoholic or abusive. The mind loves familiarity as much as it loves, novelty, right? But you have to be awake. You have to be conscious. Otherwise, you will default to that which you know, that which you're familiar with, that which is comfortable. Let me tell you this. I don't have to tell you guys. You guys are into health, as much as you are into mental health, physical health. And, easy, to get a six-pack. You got to do some work. You got to be awake at 5:30 or in the evening, go to the gym and do all those things that those influencer people ask us to do. The same thing with our psychological life. We have to be awake. We have to know our patterns, our history. We have to know ourselves. We have to know our triggers. We have to know, what it is, how our body feels. One of the seminal work in our field in the last 30 years is written by a guy, a psychiatrist by the name Bessel van der Kolk. Okay. He wrote the book. The title of the book is The Body Keeps the Score.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Wow.
And I'll drop one more thing that a lot of people are not familiar. And I want people to take some time, if you really want to understand why certain patterns are continuously happening in your life, spend some time on the website and Google adverse childhood experiences. There are 10
childhood
experiences questionnaire. There are 10 questions, right? They are designed to help you determine, the level of trauma that you have sustained, right? And each question has the same score. If you answer yes to every question, it's score 1, and then total that number. The higher your score, really, the more likely that you've been dealing with, trauma, childhood trauma, and those questions are designed to be answered, between the age of 0 to 18. Wow. A lot of us are walking, talking, trauma victim, and I say that very, very carefully. I know the language of trauma is very, very common now. People, stomp their toes against the thing. I'm traumatized. You're not traumatized. You just stressed out. It's recognizing trauma. It's important, and I'm glad that we're actually recognizing this phenomenon. We've been all dealing with it for a long time, but not everything is traumatic. Some things are just stressful. Trauma is real. And it literally changes the structure of your brain. And can have enduring physical, emotional, and psychological, and I would dare to say spiritual implications in our lives. So because let me say it one more time, Doc. Trauma can literally distort your perception of God. How
Whoa.
you see God. Yes, sir. Not only distorts your perception of yourself, it distorts your perception of other people, it distorts your perception of God, and it distorts your perception of reality, period.
So hold on, Doc. Because, all right. Let me go here. Because oftentimes when we think about, let me just say it like I want to say it, I have an issue with couples counseling. Not that it's not necessary, I'm sure it is. But I think that couples counseling, in my opinion, from what I have experienced, it needs to be second on the list for me, my thoughts. Because I think I have now a me before we conversation when it comes down to healing from your own trauma. Because A wise man told me just recently, I believe it was last week, hey, your trauma could actually inflate her trauma and vice versa. Or it wasn't inflate, but what's the word? Trigger. Your trauma can trigger her trauma. Her trauma can trigger your trauma. The same thing. So what's the best way for us to deal with couples that have individual trauma, but now coming together trying to fix everything? Is it, in fact, like I said, me before we, or do you find that, hey, this coming together and we'll just figure it out?
So you're raising an important question here, and if there are some master's degree in counseling folks out there, so this is a dissertation question for them. But let me see if I can help you. Actually, there are some therapists or some theorists that will actually argue that couples therapy is actually one of the most effective means of transforming individual and relational dynamics, right? Mm. But the point that you're making is if the trauma is too salient, if the trauma is too raw, the relationship does not have enough safety and container to do the work that will facilitate healing. So there are times, even within the context of couples work, that we invite people to do individual works, So a lot of people that really get good traction in this psychotherapeutic work, are people that are working with someone in a couples setting and then doing their individual work, that is usually, especially when the trauma is really intractable, you want to recommend that. But therapy in the hands of a right person, with the right connection, can bring about change, transformation. You both know it. It is not easy. It is not cheap. It is not, for the weaklings. But what we know is that when we do the work, our lives are changed, our lives are transformed, and we're able to show up, with the best of who we are in all of life's relationships. But really, and one more point that I wanted to make, because people have a really misunderstanding of psychotherapy, right? Let's assume, right? I've been dealing with an issues, right? Since I was 5 years old, right? I'm in my 60s now, right? And I want to go see a therapist, and I just want them to fix that issue for me in 10 sessions, 20 sessions. That's not fair to you or to the therapist. And secondly, let me say this. These 45-minute sessions that we do on a weekly basis is just scratching the surface of some of the issues that people are dealing with.
100%.
The traditional psychoanalytic psychotherapy was 5 days a week.
Say that again?
Yes, the traditional psychoanalytic treatment was 5 days a week. Now, let me mention this to you. So imagine, right, people doing 5 days a week of psychotherapy, really examining their mind, their relationships, their work, and all of that, versus you, doing, 45 to 50 minutes a day, and you're expecting to get the same result. I think a lot of the time we need to, psychotherapy is not magical, and it's not a quick fix. If you understand the dynamic of the mind, if you don't understand the mind, if you just think it's about your thinking and your feeling and your behavior, yes, you can have a behaviorist, you can have a cognitive behavioral person, or you can have emotionally focused psychotherapist. But if really you're thinking about doing some depth work, it requires time, it requires money, and it requires commitment. Now, again, not everybody is qualified. Therapy, as I sometimes say that some people are just visiting with me. They just come in for few sessions, and some people are really, here to do the real work of change and transformation.
So in order to do the deep work, you just said it takes time, money, and commitment. That's TMC.
That's right.
Yeah.
See, that's pastor right there.
It's so profound in there. It's so many things that's been said that's truly been shared, but we're talking about this deep work. We're talking about the history. We're talking about what it actually takes, the time, the commitment, and the money in this. How do we invite brothers who feel unappreciated, who feels that the world is stacked against them, to actually go on this journey of doing the work when they don't feel like they have the time, because their time, because of lack of boundaries, is now out here because this is what I need to do to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
Their money is lacking, or it's already allocated, or their commitment. They feel like the reason why they have this trauma is because they made commitments that went wrong.
Mm.
They made a commitment, and this commitment blew up on me. I made a commitment to be with my family, and now my wife is telling me we got a divorce and you're going to take my kids. I made a commitment to do this, and I find myself now incarcerated. I made a commitment. How do you help brothers see that this work is essential? Because time, money, and commitment oftentimes is a painful point.
And I'm going to add another piece to that, to just make the answer even more robustly difficult, okay? They have done the counseling.
Oh.
They have done it, but they were with somebody that wasn't fully qualified. They wasn't with a Dr. Lewis Kola. And they was with somebody that had their own trauma. I remember, real quick, my wife and I went to a therapist. And the therapist, the wife of the therapist, it was two of them. The wife of the therapist, they were both therapists. The wife was triggered by me because I reminded her of somebody.
Uh-huh.
And that whole session was, man, I'm gonna tell you, I got beat up. And I'm looking at the husband like, you can't help me. You can't see what's happening. He wasn't about to mess up his crib. And so all the time now, my wife, well, wasn't my wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time was like, okay, so you heard what the therapist said. I was right. You were wrong. Yeah, I almost, if I didn't have the Lord on my side, I would have never gone back to counseling again in therapy. So add that into the mix when you answer.
Sure. So the time, money, and commitment piece.
And I call it negative experience.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. I get that, really. I am a Black man too.
Wow.
And I understand the pain and the struggle and the challenges of what it means to be a Black man in the 21st century post-industrial capitalist American culture. Wow. I get it.
Wow.
But this is where I stand. Whatever that is important to us, we will find the resources to make it happen in our lives.
Oh, man. Oh, bro. That's all true.
It depends on, how important it is, right? I'll tell you this very quickly. When I started practicing, seeing people from different backgrounds and understanding the nature of the human psyche was very important to me. I didn't care. I'll see people for $5 back then. I just want to gain that experience. That was important to me.
For $5 now. Let's just say that.
Oh, no, sir. So let's keep that in mind. And brothers, the two of you as well as those that are listening to us, man, we buy shoes. We go out for lunch. We go out for dinner, and we drop $100, $150. So it depends how important we need to begin to reimagine and rethinking our own health. One person observed recently that health is wealth. I remember saying a brother not too long ago, he was a clergyman too. And one day, it's been about, over a decade now. One day he said, Doc, since I've been seeing you, even my credit score went up. I said, yeah, I'm going to increase your rate.
Seriously.
No, really, and you both know this, when we heal, when we get better, it's not just your mental health. Really, your mental health is the center of your emotional, relational, and even your spiritual universe, really. So I want to say that. The second thing that I wanted to say, and I want to be very careful, that are incredible, gifted therapists out there that are doing imaginative work, doing transformational work, and I'm very grateful that we have that. But I'm also aware, just like in any fields, right? There are different levels of training and commitment to ongoing training. And so that, after you finish school and you get your license, that's it. Our field require at least 30 hours of continued education training every 2 years. And people do the bare minimum, right? So that's one piece: ongoing training, ongoing reading, and maintaining the atmosphere of curiosity about your clients. Never figure your clients out. You're constantly wondering, you're constantly raising questions, you're constantly exploring with humility. I don't know any person more than they know themselves. Whatever it is that I'm discovering, we're discovering it together. And you both know that, right? So it's important really for ongoing training, education, and self-learning on your own. And the last piece I want to mention, I am no shame to tell you that I practice what I preach. Wow. I have place in my own life where I do what my clients do with me. It is that important to me because I'm a human being. I'm exposed to things constantly. Within 24 hours, the mind is absorbing all kinds of images, impressions, negativity, interactions. I need a place where I want to examine my mind. Somebody says that an unexamined life, an unexamined mind, by extension, is not worth living, is not worth having. Wow. So, and there are therapists, unfortunately, that sit with folks that have not spent enough time examining and digging deep into their own psychic, into their own history, and know what their triggers are so that they're not dumping their stuff on their clients. And a lot of that happens just in any other fields, So I think it's really taking the time, to find a person that is a right fit for you. Now, I say this, as much as, psychotherapy, is a healing, experience, the healing is done or happens through relationship. The connection, yes, the connections that you have with your therapist really is the instrumentality of healing. If you're not connected to your therapist, you're less likely to be vulnerable. You're less likely to tell things that you feel ashamed about, things that you feel guilty about, things that you feel inadequate about, things that you feel not good enough about. But the more connected, the more secure, the more you feel safe, then you can go to these places. I think the book says that you can say to your therapist, here I am, naked and not ashamed.
Yeah.
And you know that person can hold your emotional nakedness without shaming you, without guilting you, without making you feel bad, or without dumping their own stuff on you.
Yeah, Dr. Kola. We're gonna land the plane with this one. We really appreciate the time that you are taking to spend with us.
Yes,
and the fact that you're saying to make sure that you have that the time and the commitment and the resources. You got to have all of that. It's not a push for more clients. Listen. If I submit somebody to you, it's because I know that. Listen, they absolutely 100% need you. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you taking this time. Here's my question. I want you to juxtapose, if you will, self-improvement with self-acceptance. Because some of us have some things that we don't know that we think is bad and needs to be thrown away. That we feel like there's some parts of us that are just bad and it needs to be improved. And then what I've learned with you is that some parts, I just have the wrong label on it. It's not bad. You just need to accept what it is and understand what it is telling you and how it is serving you. So can we talk about that a little bit? Self-improvement versus self-acceptance.
I'm listening.
So self-improvement, if I understand what you mean by that, right? Growing ourselves up, developing ourselves, working on ourselves, and self-acceptance, they are not mutually exclusive. In fact, a healthy, sustaining self-improvement is predicated on self-acceptance. that self-acceptance and self-sustained, healthy, life-giving self-improvement is not mutually exclusive from self-acceptance. You cannot change that which you have not accepted.
You cannot change that
Which you have
that
not
you
accepted.
have not accepted. Wow. You said something recently to me in our session. You said, hey, you sound angry. I'm like, why you say that? Well, he said, you're angry. I said, why you say that? Well, because you sound angry. And I'm like, well, maybe I am angry. And you said to me that allow myself to be angry, to accept that I'm angry. And this is a situation that would make me angry. And then you said, just because you are angry doesn't mean you have to act angry. It was that paradigm shift, that distinction that made all the difference for me. Is that what you're saying about acceptance?
Well, we have a long-standing relationship. So
Indeed.
there are things that I will say to you or someone that I have a long-standing relationship that will not come out with someone that I just met today. In fact, in that particular intervention, I was deliberately being provocative because I wanted you to connect with the feeling that you were talking about is in the room, but somehow you didn't want to name it. And so, and I know you quite well. You know me. We've been on this dance for a while. I knew if I came across to you that way, then we're more likely to go there. So that's where that was coming. And then we did. And then see where we are.
I like the fact that you said that, though, because I never thought that anger would be something that I could claim or that I can put ownership to.
Yeah.
I thought it was something I need to, get rid of.
It's excellent point, really. I'm hesitating because, see, a lot of the challenges that we have with our emotions, hear me out, is because, and this linked to the question or the observation that Pastor David made a moment ago, is because we don't feel entitled. And I know that's a bad word, but think about it in the context that I'm using it. We don't feel entitled to our own emotions.
Yeah, man.
So we feel sad. I shouldn't be feeling this way. So that I feel, what's wrong with me that I feel this? Listen, if you're feeling sad, there's a reason why you're feeling sad. And so the question is, I wonder.
Self-acceptance. I wonder
As opposed to, I shouldn't. So we don't feel Carl Jung, right? One of the prodigy of Sigmund Freud, coined the phrase that we need to befriend our shadow, not run away from our shadow. Have you ever seen anybody who is successful at running away from their shadow?
Never.
So why not befriend it? Why not say, woof? And by the way, let me make one more quick statement here. It is important to pay attention to the sensations in our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your body feeling tense, you're feeling agitated, your body feeling tingling. Mm-hmm. Notice that. Pay attention to that. Don't dismiss that. In fact, the body gives us messages that we ignore. And I can go into that a little bit more, but we don't have time. Let me say this very quickly. Long before your mind says this is sadness, your body has already felt it. Long before your mind says, oh, this is anger, because what your mind is doing is interpreting. Remember, your mind, have you ever seen your mind? Your mind is encased in your body, so your body feels it. And then your brain says, okay, this is anger. This is sadness. So if you listen to your body, let me give you a quick example, and I know we got to stop. When you are hungry, what does that say? What is the message that your body is saying to you?
You need something to eat?
Your body is in need of nutrients. When you're thirsty, what is your body saying? Your body is in need of hydration.
Man, come on.
When you're tired, your body's saying you're in need of rest. But guess what we do? We take Coca-Cola, or we take coffee.
Red Bull, yeah.
Red Bull, whatever those bulls are, and we keep pushing. We do not listen to our body. And if you fail to listen to your body will make you to listen to it.
Make you.
Dr. Kola, man, we honor you. We thank you for your time,
Yes.
and we love you so much. I know you got to run, and we appreciate you, but this was what you call, bro, incredible.
Prolific.
In essence, it was our own. I mean, we talk about this stuff in our own therapy, you know what I'm saying, sessions. But what I like about this is that he made it very clear that in order for you to become, in essence, the best version of yourself,
yes,
which is deep, you got to dig deep enough to get to the treasure that is the best version of you.
Right. And it's going to take time. It's going to take commitment. It's going to take money. And any external factor is secondary because you then become primary. And that's what's huge about that is that many times we as men, we make everything else and more important than us.
Yeah.
And you working on you is actually that step of saying that you are worth it. And so to my brothers out there, you're worth the work on yourself. Don't put so much work in everything else that you neglect yourself. You're worth it. And when you do that work on you, it's going to show up everywhere.
And I think it's important, gentlemen, as we wrap up, I think it's important also that you not be afraid of the mess that comes from you working on yourself. Demolition is never really pretty.
Never.
But if you're really wanting to be the person that you ultimately can become, then it's going to require you having to, in some cases, tear down some structures that are upholding the version of you that you no longer want anymore. And that's going to take some demolition. It's going to take some dust. It's going to be some mess. And it's not going to be uncomfortable for you, but it's also going to be uncomfortable in some cases for those who rock with you. But my challenge to you is to don't keep going because there is a version of you waiting to be unveiled that will only come after you get through the dust and the dirt.
You know, there's an account in the Bible where there were a man that was paralyzed that was laid on a cart.
Oh, come on. I see.
And his friends wanted him to be well.
Yeah.
But they carried him to the house that Jesus was in.
Yeah.
And what's unique about this is that in order for them to get their healing, they had to tear the roof off.
Yeah.
And it's symbolic in that sometimes for men, for you to get where you need to be, it requires, we got to put on that hard hat.
Yeah, bro.
And also often admit the vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And that's why man up community is important because sometimes, brother, you on the mat.
Yeah.
And you got to have some brothers that can carry you to that moment of transformation as you go down and as you come up. So we love you. We're with you. We hold no shame. We hold no animosity against you. All of us got a past. All of us got our stories.
Yeah.
But we got to dig deep to see who we are and where God can get the glory through our lives. And so we love you. Let's do it together.
Yeah. And we, like you said, man, we don't have no judgments with you. And the truth is, you can come apart. You can come undone with us. And we're not going to judge you. There are other people that's going to look as you taking the high road. They're going to call you soft. They're going to call you a simp. They're like, hey, man, if that happened to me, I would have. Well, yeah, it didn't happen to you, and it is happening to me. And this is the route that I'm choosing because it is more in line with who I want to become.
Yeah.
And when you decide who you want to be,
Yep.
then you start doing things that are in alignment with who you said you wanted to be. And then you'll be able to have the things that the person that you said you wanted to be will have. So in other words, you're not running after stuff.
No, you're becoming it.
You're becoming it and you're attracting it.
Yeah, when you become it, you attract it, you have it, it follows you. It comes to you.
Yeah.
And so that's our greatest work as a man, is becoming.
Yeah. I love you, bro. Man, continue to become the best version of yourself, and we're here with you every step of the way. We love you, man. Till next time, man up.
Man up.